In the year 647 CE, the most powerful emperor of North India, Harshavardhana, had taken his last breath. For 50 years, he had bound together the plains of the Ganga and Yamuna into one thread. His empire had shone not only with the sword, but also with culture, trade, and diplomacy. But a cruel twist of fate, he left without an heir. And with his death, the throne of Kanoj was orphaned. Kanoj, this was not just a city. It was the beating heart of North India. Settled on the banks of the Ganga, connected to trade routes, a confluence of cultures, whoever possessed Kanoj would become the center of politics in North India. After Harsha, there was no clear successor to sit on the throne. Small feudatories began to dream of becoming a mighty empire. But the problem was, the dreams belonged to many, the throne to only one. Kashmir, Kanoj, Bengal, Rajasthan. In every region, new rulers were rising. No power was strong enough to unite the whole of North India the way Harsha once had. This vacuum of power would, in the years to come, become the cause of 2 centuries of bloodshed. Before we understand how the war began, let us first meet the 3 major players of this conflict. The first player, the Pratiharas, also known as the Gurjara-Pratiharas dynasty. The second, the Rashtrakuta dynasty, who came into the field from the south. And the third, the Pala dynasty, who brought their power from the east. Now let's understand one by one who they were and how strong they were. Gurjara-Pratihara, these warriors, who rose from the land of Gujarat, were famous for their bravery and disciplined cavalry. In 730 CE, Nagbhata I laid its foundation. These kings claimed to be descendants of Lakshman, the younger brother of Lord Rama. In the 7th and 8th centuries, when the Arab Caliphate's armies advanced towards India, it was the Pratiharas who faced them first and faced them with the greatest resolve. The Arab traveller Al-Masudi also wrote, "The best cavalry in all of India belonged to the Pratiharas." Along with war skills, the Pratihara court was also known for its mathematics and scholarship. It was here that scholars contributed to the development of algebra, and this knowledge travelled to the Arab lands, later known as the Hindu-Arabic numerals. Kings like Nagbhata II and the great Emperor Mihira Bhoja were the pride of this dynasty. The second player, the Rashtrakuta dynasty. Emerging from southern India, this royal line was unmatched in both the art of war and love for culture. In 735 CE, Danti Durga established it. Among them, the most famous name, Govinda III, who demonstrated his power from the Himalayas to present-day Sri Lanka. History says that the king of Sri Lanka accepted Govinda III as his overlord without a single battle being fought. The Rashtrakutas are also linked with the caves of Ellora. Krishna I commissioned the construction of the famous Kailas temple there, a unique marvel carved out of a single mountain from the top down. And now the third player, the Pala dynasty. In the east, in the region of Bengal and present-day Bangladesh, during the 6th, 7th centuries, lay what was once called the Gauda Empire. After the era of a mighty king like Shashanka, when a power vacuum emerged in Gauda, a great assembly chose Gopala as king, and thus began the Pala dynasty. The Pala rulers were great patrons of Buddhism. Ancient universities like Nalanda and Taxila flourished again in their time. The Vikramshila University in Bhagalpur was also established during the Pala era. Now you know the names of the 3, their strengths, and their realms. It is now time to understand why these 3 clashed so fiercely over Kanoj. The first player, the rise and fall of Yashovarman, 647 to 740 CE. A few years after Harsha's death, an ambitious ruler seized Kannauj, Yashovarman. Poets like Banbhata and historians describe his persona as a symbol of bravery and radiance. Yashovarman made Kannauj his capital and quickly expanded his army. His dream to revive Harsha's empire. He displayed his power in the Gangetic plains, befriended Lalitaditya Muktpida of Kashmir, and extended his influence all the way to Rajputana. Kannauj was once again becoming a center. But in history, power is taken away just as quickly as it is gained. Before Yashovarman stood a new challenge rising from the south, the Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakutas' first invasion. From Devgiri in southern India, the Rashtrakuta dynasty began advancing north. Danti Durga and then Krishna I, they were not merely warriors, but shrewd strategists. Their armies were filled with swift horses, well-equipped infantry, and war elephants. The news of Kanoj's prosperity and political importance had reached the south. The Rashtrakuta army advanced through central India and struck at the very roots of Yashovarman's empire. For the first time, the southern banner flew over the streets of Kanoj. Yashovarman had to leave his ambitions unfulfilled. This was only the first invasion. In the years to come, the conflict was going to turn even bloodier. With Yashovarman's defeat, one thing became clear. Kanoj was no longer to belong to a single king, but was about to become the battleground of three great powers. After Yashovarman's defeat, the throne of Kanoj was once again vacant. But now, not just small feudatories, three such powers were about to enter the field who would spill each other's blood for the next 1.5 centuries. They were Gurjara-Pratiharas, Palas, and Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakuta Empire was spreading rapidly. Danti Durga and his successor Krishna I defeated the Chalukyas and took control over a large part of the south. But their ambition did not stop there. The Ganga plain and its crown, Kannoj, was their supreme target. The Rashtrakutas had deep strategic understanding. They knew that to capture Kanoj, not only the sword, but also diplomacy and the right use of time was necessary. The first clash begins end of the 8th century. Now, from three sides, eyes were fixed on the throne. From the west, the Pratiharas. From the east, the Palas. From the south, the Rashtrakutas. Kanoj was like a golden cage, and three tigers were ready to tear it apart. Pratihara Emperor Vatsaraj made the first move. He marched towards Kanoj and along the way brought small states under his control. But as soon as he reached near Kanoj, from the east came the army of Pala ruler Dharmpala. On the banks of the Ganga, both armies stood face to face. The sound of oars, war cries, and the beat of war drums. The whole field had become a theatre of war. Dharmpala formed a wall of elephants, while Vatsaraj attacked the flanks with cavalry. The war went on for many days, and finally the Pala army gained the upper hand. The Pratiharas retreated, but their will was not broken when both northern powers were clashing with each other. From the south, Rashtrakuta Emperor Dhruvdharvarsha made his move. He crossed the Narmada with his army and moved northwards, and suddenly attacked both Pratiharas and Palas together. This sudden attack changed the course of the war. Dharmapala had to withdraw. Vatsaraj too could not stand against the southern power. Kanoj, once again, did not go into the hands of anyone. This was the first time when all three great powers entered the battlefield together. And the result was the same, which would repeat for the next 100 years. Blood, destruction, and yet the crown of Kanoj incomplete. The Gurjara-Pratiharas, Palas, and Rashtrakutas. All three knew that the only way to capture Kannauj was to completely crush the others. In the last decades of the 8th century, this struggle was not just for one city, but for the crown of entire North India. The rise of Pratihara Bhoja. Around 850 CE, on the throne of the Gurjara-Pratiharas sat such a king, whom later generations would call the Emperor of North India, Bhoja. Bhoja was not only a warrior, but a master strategist. He first secured the western front, then turned his eyes towards the Ganga plains. Kannauj had become the center of his ambition. Bhoja's cavalry was fast like lightning. He either subdued the small feudatories or destroyed them. The capture of Kannauj seemed to be in his grip. But from the east, an old enemy was returning, the successor of Dharmpala, Devpala. Decisive clash on the banks of the Ganga. The armies of Bhoja and Mihipala stood face to face on the banks of the Ganga. The Pala army had heavy war elephants, while the Pratihara cavalry was fast and agile. On the first day of war, the cavalry attacked the flanks of the elephants, but the Pala army stopped them with their archery. On the second day, Bhoja launched a surprise attack from across the river, and the Pala army had to retreat. After this victory, Bhoja raised his flag of triumph in Kanoj. But this crown did not remain with him for long. Rashtrakutas' second strike. In the south, the Rashtrakuta Emperor Amogvarsh was ruling. Seeing the growing power of Bhoja, he sent his general towards the north. Waves of cavalry and infantry crossed the Narmada and entered directly into the Ganga-Yamuna plains. Kanoj was suddenly attacked, and the Pratihara army suffered heavy losses. The Rashtrakutas took control of Kanoj for some time, but the turmoil on their southern borders forced them to withdraw. The decade of blood and betrayal, 900 to 910 CE. In this decade, power changed hands so fast that even historians sometimes confuse the years. Sometimes Pratiharas, sometimes Palas, sometimes Rashtrakutas. Every year some new ruler would sit on the throne of Kanoj and then be dethroned. Sometimes defeat in the battlefield, sometimes betrayal in their own court, poison cups, midnight attacks, and broken treaties. All these had become part of Kanoj's politics. These continuous wars burned the Ganga plains into ashes. Villages were destroyed, trade stopped, but the hunger for the throne refused to end. The revival of Pratihara Mihipala. In this chaos, another strong king rose in the Pratihara dynasty, Mihipala. He united his kingdom and pushed the Palas back to the east. Mihipala gave Kanoj some years of stability. But even this stability was temporary. The pressure of the Rashtrakutas and the return of the Palas again brought clouds of war. From 850 to 950 CE, Kanoj was a battlefield where swords grew more than crops. And still, this struggle was not over. The centuries of this game of blood and iron had exhausted North India. Villages deserted, fields barren, trade stopped. But the hunger for the throne was still alive. The last shine of the Pratiharas. After 950 CE, the Pratihara dynasty was now declining from its peak. The successors of Mihipala were weak, and feudatories openly started revolting. In Kannauj, the Pratihara flag was still flying, but the empire behind it was full of cracks. The Rashtrakutas and Palas both felt this weakness. The Palas attacked from the east, while from the south, the Rashtrakutas made their last great invasion. The Pratihara army won one or two battles, but their strength was not the same anymore. The defense of the throne was now just a matter of time. The fall of the Pala Empire. On the other side, the Pala dynasty too was struggling with its internal crisis. After Dharmpala and Devpala, the rulers who came later were neither so capable nor so ambitious. In Bengal, the local chiefs revolted, and many created independent states. When the Palas started their campaign towards Kanoj, they faced heavy resistance on both southern and northern fronts. Their army returned, but weakened. Now they could never again fight a decisive battle for Kanoj. The end of the Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakutas, who once ruled from the south to the north, on the edge of the sword, were now trapped within their own boundaries. In the west, the Chalukyas, in the east, small rebellious states and conspiracies of the royal court had hollowed their empire. Around 1000 CE, the practical end of the Rashtrakuta Empire had come. For them, the dreams of Kanoj had now become the past. The final fall of the Pratiharas. When in 1018 CE Mahmud of Ghazni marched towards Kanoj, the Pratihara Empire was just a name. Historian Aludbi wrote that Mahmud captured Kanoj almost without a battle. That city, which was once soaked in the blood of 3 great dynasties, now silently bowed before a foreign invader. That was the moment when the crown of Kanoj broke forever. The impact and legacy of war. This continuous war of 200 years shattered the political unity of North India. The empires, which once stopped Arab invasions, were now dying from their own wounds. But this struggle created one more thing: the rise of local culture. Villages and small states made their languages, traditions, and art. Kanoj, even today, is the capital of perfume and fragrance. But its old palaces and forts are only stories buried in stones of those rulers who staked their whole lives and empires for one city. This was the full saga of the centuries-long triple war for Kanoj by 3 empires. If you like this story, then do like the video, subscribe to the World Insights channel, and tell us in the comments, according to you, who was the most powerful king in Indian history? In the next episode, we will see how the fall of all 3 great empires opened the path for the rise of regional states and opened the doors for Turkish invasions. Stay connected. Jai Hind.